Blerds in the game.
All right. Welcome back to the Geekset podcast, the only podcast that blend hip hop culture and geek culture together. I'm your boy Deuces, and this is 101 with Deuces, the place where I speak with creators, curators, and people that you should know. And again, you guys know when I say this intro that I do not say this lightly, but we are talking to a whole legend right now. And when I say a whole legend, I am talking about an Oscar nominee. I'm talking about first African-American to co-direct a Disney animated film. And the person who was responsible for the talk of the whole world across the Spider-Verse, we have one and only Kemp Powers. How are you doing, brother?
I'm good. Partially responsible. Like I said, I'm part of a team, man. This movie was like the ultimate team effort, and I'm feeling good. I mean, I'm tired. It's been a busy week. It's been, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, like you do your work and you kind of sit down at the end and you're like, I think we did something good, man. I think this is, you know what I mean? Like
I think you guys did something good. I mean,
this is before anyone sees it, and you're like, I think this is good. And it's hard to get to that point where you can even say that about your own work. You know what I mean? Like being an artist, being a writer and a director, you're filled with this self-doubt because the process. So to be like there at those last moments in like the sound mix stage and just being like, yo, I think this is dope. So whether the world loves it or hates it, I love it. And then to actually have it come out and a lot of people show that kind of love, man, it's really validating, man. It's really validating stuff.
Man, so, shout out to Noriega and the Drink Champs. They make it more, acceptable to make sure that we are giving people their flowers while they're here. And I know you've been hearing the praises and everything, but I need to let you know, I mean, from the Blerd Culture to you, bro, man, we truly appreciate everything that you are standing for and everything that you're bringing to this culture. Telling these Black stories, really pushing the narrative on trying to have just, different stories told, in animation. I see your love for animation, love for this culture, and just being able to integrate so many things, with the music, with the culture, with the sound, with the representation in so many different avenues. So thank you so much for it, man. Like I said, we can't stop singing those praises enough, because just as much as it's important for us to have those Black actors and that representation in front of that camera, it is highly important for us to have so many people behind the scenes, directing, writing, DP, whatever. Like we need those people as well. And, your story is one of those stories of so much inspiration. The pandemic hit and it caused everybody to pivot. And you are a person who literally lived pivoting. You spent almost 2 decades being a journalist, and then you pivoted over because you had this really innate, like, raw talent for writing, where people were giving you opportunities just based off of that journalism, but off of that work, off of that and everything like that. So, I wanted to dive into that. Like, what was the turning point for you where you pivoted from journalism, making that big career change and jumping into, directing and writing and just expanding your talents?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is it wasn't just one turning point. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where I've always loved to write. I've always been one of those. I mean, I used to write comic books when I was a little kid, and draw them myself. And I always liked to write poetry. I was always a creative person, but like, let's be real. Like, I grew up in Brooklyn in the 80s. And, when you come from a community that's, not that well off, the jobs, the thing that I do for a career now, I didn't know existed when I was 8 years old. You know what I mean? So no matter how much you enjoy doing a thing, it's like, well, that's not something I can do from my life, from my career.
Right.
So, I knew I loved to write and I knew I loved to read, and journalism was like the natural career path to go into. Going into college freshman year, I started writing for my school paper, and that turned into the start of my journalism career. But I always wrote creatively for fun. And that's just it, is that when you're always doing this for yourself, you
Yeah.
know, you're your most important audience, because I've kept that from when I was a kid to now. Like, I call it arrogance. I think I have pretty good taste, and I think artists can often get caught up in this, like, what does the market want to see? What do people want? It's like, no, man, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of film. I'm a fan of art.
Mhm.
I'm a fan of animation. What do I want to see? What do
Right.
what would I want to go and, like, put my money down and go out there and see? So, it's just about, like, trusting your own taste. And honestly, for me, it was, like I said, it was a multi-part process. I was in the middle of my journalism career, and I got a fellowship. I got basically to take a sabbatical year away from journalism, to do what was called a night fellowship at University of Michigan. So I got 1 year off to go to Michigan, in Ann Arbor, and I was supposed to be, like, studying global economics while I was there, and I wanted to take a writing class. The only writing class that was available was screenwriting. And I was like, oh, I've written comic scripts before. I've dabbled in writing plays. I'm going to give this a shot. So I ended up being in a screenwriting class at the university. And I was about 10 years older than all the other students, because I was almost 30 years old. So maybe it was because of the age, my perspective, whatever. My professor told me, like, you ought to give this screenwriting thing a chance. And that's really what kind of prompted me to first move out to LA way back in, like, 2003. But when I first got here, I got another screenwriting fellowship at USC. I did screenwriting there, got my first agent, and it just washed out, man. Like, I dipped my toe into Hollywood for like a year and was like, yeah, this isn't for me. Like, this just isn't for me. So I backed out of it, and went back to journalism for like over a decade. And now that I kind of didn't care about breaking into Hollywood anymore, I was doing my writing on the side, writing little short plays. Short plays turn into full-length plays. And finally, I got my first full-length play produced, and that play was One Night in Miami. So I got that play produced here in LA at a little 99-seat theater off of Pico and La Brea. Literally, the theater was across the street from Roscoe's. And it was one of those things where it kind of caught fire. Audiences in the neighborhood, in the community. I lived like 4 blocks from the theater. So the community kind of started coming out to the play. It kept getting extended. And by like the 3rd month or 4th month of that extension, it was Hollywood in the audience. And so once again, I got like a second invitation to come back to give this a shot. And it came at the perfect time for me, because after being a journalist all those years, I had just gotten laid off from what ended up being my last journalism job. I was a senior editor at Yahoo, and I was kind of at this crossroads where it was like, okay, I immediately got offered another job at another publication, but I was like, all right, I just got laid off. I got my severance package. My stocks vested. I basically got like a year's worth of salary in the bank right now, and this is it. Like, I'm about to turn like 40 years old at the time. And I'm like, this is my last shot. I've been this thing I've been doing for fun my whole life that I've really dreamed to do. This is my shit or get off the pot moment, And so I basically decided to, like, not take the other job and give myself until my bank account ran down a little over a year to finally try to make this screenwriting thing work out. So I committed myself to it, and I kid you not, it was like a couple of months before that bank account was at zero. I sold my first TV show, and the show didn't get made, but I got put into development. You know what I'm saying? And so I got some money. I got to start working within the system, and there were lots of little things like that. Like, I got into my first TV writer's room, didn't go well. I got let go of that room. And every time, it also helped me a lot that I just had a play that closed just a couple of months ago. I write and direct in different mediums. So
Right.
Whenever I would get tired of one thing, I just kind of pivot over to something that could give me happiness and satisfaction. I'm very driven by being my true self, in everything that I do. But I mean, those are a couple of really the key moments. I think it was getting let go of my last job at the right time when my work was finally getting recognized. And rather than playing it safe, being well, dude, better keep that job for security.
Yeah.
I said to hell with it. And I had enough money. I don't want to get it twisted. I was working as a barista. I was just I had enough money in the bank to float me for,
Right.
and rather than be all right, I'll get started on this in a couple of months. I was jamming. I mean, I was doing meetings. I was pitching stories. Every good idea that I had, I was kind of trying to put it out into the world. And finally it started to kind of stick.
No, that's such an inspirational story, especially something for me. I'm 2 months into where you were when you just got let go from your job, right? Yeah. And so now I'm 2 months into voice acting, and just similar to your story, once that happened, I do narration for Watch Mojo. They started amping me up, they need more of me over there. And I'm like, oh man, I'm again, same thing. I'm I've been dipping my toe into this voice acting, and I'm you know what? Now I'm going full fledged. And then just 2 weeks ago, I got my agent. So I'm listening to your story, yo, okay, this is giving me inspiration.
Man, this is work. And that's the thing. It's art and it's fun and we have joy, but I don't think people understand how competitive this is. There's a million more qualified, talented people than there are opportunities. So the difference between the talented people who are here and who are not, honestly, is perseverance and luck.
Yeah.
You gotta be in it and working hard. And it's honestly, that's a lesson I learned from my journalism days. I mean, it was I don't have to be the best writer. I gotta be the one who can deliver the story.
There we go. And that's the one. That's the one thing that I always try to hold, I preach to my team. We're a team of 4 essentially, but then we have other people that help us out with this podcast. And the one thing I tell them, I say, look, what we are trying to do is be this reporters of the culture. So when we look at things like the stuff that you do, and and then we are able to get this interview with you, to me, I'm yeah, that is us. We're helping tell Kemp's story. We're helping expand his story and everything like that. And that's what we hang our hats on. So these wins like this, I'm yo, this is huge. This is the biggest movie of the year right now. We got the guy that's been working on it. You know what I'm saying? So I was I latch onto that. And what's really dope about, your drive, again, your drive is always embedded in telling just different stories, right? When you talk about the Spider-Verse and you talk about the art, I think that is something that a lot of people, some people who didn't realize the power of animation don't see, right? But Spider-Verse forced a lot of people to focus on themes, focus on art, focus on animation and music. So in this movie and, with everything, you talk about the individual silos that you, Justin, and Joaquin have, right? And how yours is you really love directing the voice actors and the editing process. So what is it about that process that really draws you?
I think because of coming from theater, I like working with actors and I like trying to get the best, most emotional performance out of it. And edit, look, man, movies are basically cut together and edit. Edit is where every talented person's amazing work kind of ends up in that edit suite. And that's where you kind of piece this all together and you start seeing what you have. And edit is as much about having debates, you're seeing it up there and you're having debates. It's constant debates about what's the best path to go down. It really taps into the best part of my creativity. And again, when we say silo, ultimately understand we all had to do everything. It's just that when you start getting down to the wire for efficiency's sake, the early part of making a movie like this is being in art school. It's so fantastic because, the 3 of us, and then sometimes Phil and Chris, like we're going to meetings with character designers and
Yeah.
costume designers. Like it was a running joke among the team how much I obsessed over Jeff's shirt at the barbecue. Jeff's shirt at the barbecue. We went through so many shirts and it became a joke. It's like, basically, I just want him to wear a shirt that I would wear because, you know, I'm like his age. I got a teenage son and I want, you know, like I just want a dope shirt. And so, you know, Bree, one of our costume designers, like she gave us so many shirts for Jeff and Rio. And this was years ago. This is like early on before the scene is even built. And we're obsessing over things like that. You know what I'm saying? Like Miles's jersey in his room is an alternate dimension, right? So in his dimension, it's still the Knicks, but it's the Brooklyn Knicks. I'm a Knicks fan.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm from Brooklyn. And then when you see his back, the player he's wearing is God Shamgod. Now, me being from New York, Shamgod, the Shamgod crossover is
my God.
He's the godfather of the crossover. And I'm like, this is important. Like, we got to reach out and get the rights to this because, like, I love the idea that in an alternate universe, Shamgod was like a star player for the New York Knicks. He wasn't just like a street ball legend who played a couple of seasons. So understand, man, most people will never notice that. But what makes these films special is that to me, details like that feel like a tremendous win. Just seeing Miles get up off his bed and see Shamgod across his Brooklyn Knicks jersey. And all that stuff, like we're doing that together. You know what I'm saying? Like me and Justin and Joaquin, like we're pouring all of our passion and all of our nerdiness, the shit that matters so much to us. We're pouring it into little moments of the film like that, you know, making sure Miles is eating a Jamaican beef patty. You know what I mean? Because that's what I eat, you know? It's like little details like that. And not just related to Miles, related to like all of the characters.
Yeah.
You know, like that barbecue scene was a coming together, a mishmash of so many people's Black, Latino, so many people's passions, like Octavio Rodriguez, who was our head of story, who's Dominican, you know, like, you know, we're pouring over every food item on plates, like trying to be like, okay, would he eat this here? You know, like Phil Lord, who you know, is of Cuban descent. You know, it's everybody gets to be a part of it. And I think that's just it. It's like it felt like I'm from New York and it felt like everyone in the city got represented and got to like jump in and play and feel like, you know, they got to put themselves in there.
Well, I mean, and that's why it's so important to make sure you have those people in the rooms. You know, like I said, you know, that Shamgod reference, that is a cultural reference, street ball, especially New York in general, right? And so it's like, you know, that's something that somebody who isn't from that culture, doesn't really understand that culture or know about that culture, would not get the relevance of that, you know, the relevance of the 42, you know, using that number often and everything, and like just knowing what that number represented. And it's one of the things that is really dope, because you talked about even, you know, the Indian Spider-Man and how you guys, you know, consulted, you know, people to make sure the pieces that like what would be a good representation on the suit and everything. And, you know, and then, you know, the most interesting thing is, you know, when we talk about, you know, being a geek, you know, one of our things that we do on our podcast is we are changing what the word geek is, right? You know, because the geek, it still has those negative stereotypes. People, you know, still the butt of the jokes, the nerd and all that stuff, right? But to me, a geek is somebody who can go into very in detail about a specific topic. You know, we talk about sports and we can say, oh, Kobe and LeBron is one of our favorite players. You know, Jordan's our favorite player, but you'll see somebody who can rattle off stats to explain why Jordan is the best, or Kobe is the best, or LeBron, or whatever, right? So, and to me, those are sports nerds or sports geeks, right? So when you think about, like I said, when you start thinking about like how much you guys study the art, what was the most interesting artifact that you uncovered while studying all these different art styles?
I think it was the Pav's World Mumbattan, the Indian Indrajal comic books, because I didn't know a lot. I mean, I grew up reading comic books and I had my, the Marvel comics, particularly of my world growing up. But I did not know that Indrajal were basically the Marvel comics of India. And in the process of doing research, we got hundreds of Indrajal comic books. So I found myself, reading these and in addition to the art style in the comics being so strikingly different, the stories they were trying to tell. So it was really kind of cool making a discovery about a very niche community of comic books and seeing how it evolved in another part of the world. So I think, the Mombatan Pavitra's world ended up being one of those worlds we were like the most proud of, and for me personally, being exposed to like a different culture in a much deeper way than I ever had before. From the comic books to that writer's room where like we assemble that writer's room to re-break that section of the film. And that's something that's really good to point out, is that it had to be bad first before we could make it good. And so much of the spirit of collaboration is you got to give people room to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's like we had a version of that scene that we thought was looking pretty good, and our Indian animators in Vancouver wrote us an email, and they were just like, "Yo, we get what you're trying to do, but this doesn't feel good to us." Blah blah blah. We actually did a group Zoom call, so all the Indian animators were on the Zoom call, and they kind of voiced all their different concerns. No one got defensive, and it's and that's both sides. We didn't get defensive with them, and they didn't get angry at us for doing it wrong. So you got to give people room to
grow.
Make mistakes and grow. If it's one of those things where if you make a mistake, you're done, then guess what? Then it's like people are going to be afraid to try anything new. And I think this film is the culmination of people just not being afraid for once. Not being afraid, because we got to mess up 40 times or 50 times before we get to this version of the film that you actually like.
No, yeah, and then that makes sense, but it's also the environment that you guys build. Being able to let those Indian animators know, like, hey, we are testing it out with you guys, not only just because we want to say, hey, look at us, we're giving you representation, but we do want to make sure that this does feel good. So, and having that open discussion and conversation, it only breeds the best, because I can say, walking away from the Spider-Verse and that whole crowd, there was so many talks about how everybody felt so represented. Nobody felt slighted. Everybody felt, there was people like, oh, yeah, that's my parents, or hey, that's how I grew up, or hey, you know what? Oh man, that looks dope. I want to see more into that. So it's really dope. And then obviously, with any comic book movie, there's going to be all this talks and conversations, deep dives, especially with the Easter eggs. Now, one of the biggest Easter eggs that I feel like a lot of people didn't realize in the first one, but now really are highlighting on this one, is the fact that Donald Glover is the reason for the creation of Miles Morales. And so, again, I'll put spoiler alert ahead of this so that way my listeners know before they listen. But you guys have them pop up in there. Tell me about that experience. I know that had to be extremely dope, especially as a comic book head yourself.
Yeah. I mean, and that came together at the last minute, the Donald Glover cameo. The movie released June 2nd. We started screening it in late May. I'm not kidding. I believe we recorded Donald on April 5th. It was kind of almost done, and it was hard with the schedules. We knew we wanted to have that cameo, but we couldn't pull it together, and we pulled it together at the last minute and got it in there. And it was just kind of, again, it was what was amusing to us. And it was and we experimented with it, because early on, the scene is in 2D storyboards and then it goes into layout. But we actually screened a version for a preview audience. Donald Glover wasn't in it. So in his place, it was a rough, rudimentary, almost cardboard cutout looking animation. So it was South Park, where you see the characters and they're like, oh, hi, it was just the flappy mouth thing. But even in that version, it hit so well. The audience was on the floor and they didn't see it coming. And it was just, there was all these rumors and speculations about, having someone live action. And it's like, we don't want to do it just to keep doing it and make it corny. Like, we want to get the most bang for the buck. And again, like, it could be enjoyed on two different levels, right? If you're like a super duper nerd and you're into it and you've seen Spider-Man Homecoming and you remember that, great, you're going to enjoy it. But then if you haven't seen any of that and you just like, oh, look, it's Donald Glover, like a real life Donald Glover, you can also be amused and enjoy that as well, because it's really important that, while there are things for hardcore fans to get, it has to work on a base emotional story level that is universal, that everyone can get and everyone should be able to enjoy, So it's the positive use of the expression dog whistle. You know what I mean? It's like dog whistle moments for nerds, dog whistle moments for fans. But my mom should be able to just kind of sit through this, not having read any of this stuff, and track the story and feel the emotion and be drawn into and feel connected to these characters and understand the emotional stakes, Yeah.
Like, everybody has the stereotypical on what a black geek is. Are you familiar with the term blerd?
Blerd, no.
Right.
Some people said it came off of Scrubs. Some people said it came off the internet. I don't honestly really know.
Don't you see the skin, the eyebrows, the hair?
Yo, my geeks still rock, Dunks or Jordans or whatever.
Did I do that?
It's exciting. It's like, holy, oh, my dog is gonna start barking.
It's all right.
She's excited about it too.
And same as you said, like a barbershop talk, like we would go into really in-depth conversations about these theories and like, well, what if and how come?
It's not unusual to be loved.
Right, but we talk about anime, video games, comic books and stuff like that, but when you hear us talk about it, the passion sounds like we arguing Jordan and Bron.
What do you mean? What does that even mean? What does that even mean?
Like, it sounds like barbershop talk.
Because you don't know the history, don't mean it ain't happened, dog.
You broke that down right there.
But when you see the black geek, you don't see that. You see the socially awkward glasses. Well, this is me. And that's not a lot of us. A lot of us do sound and talk like us. You know what I'm saying?
Because it becomes stereotypical, as if that's where our strength comes from.
I don't know the geek that you talked about before. I know the geek you're talking about right now, though.
It was sort of a call sign so we could find each other on message boards.
Anime gives you life lessons throughout that whole thing. Like, there's not one anime that I know of that doesn't teach you to never give up.
It's just like, I just love seeing us go into the world and go into these different spaces and create things that weren't there before.
And then it was like Miles Morales is like the normal, black person in the United States.
That was my first Blerd moment, was seeing, Storm on the X-Men cartoon series. And I was like, wow, that's a black woman and she's strong, she's powerful.
That's what I want for us. I want us to be that voice.
So, and then, when you go into a movie like this, like you said, you guys, you got the three-headed dragon between you, Justin, and Joaquin, and, there's so many other people that's involved with it. And I know that there's things that make it and things that get left on the cutting floor. Was there any spider people that you was like, dang it, I really wish that one would have, but it just didn't work out?
There's things that were super cool, man, but I don't want to say that I wish it were in there, because I feel like if it wasn't serving the story and the narrative, it had to go no matter how cool it was. Because there was a lot of other cool shit that it was just like, it's cool and all, but one, we're not going to make a 5-hour movie here. You know what I mean? Like it's already like one of the longest animated films ever. So understand that you already might need to take a bathroom break. In order for them to not take a bathroom break, we got to keep them engaged.
Right.
We got to make sure that people want to just hold it because they don't want to get up and miss something. But there were lots of cool ideas. I mean, it's been mentioned in other articles. I mean, there was one point where, the Spot went into the bar with no name and it was like all these like mad supervillains there, like crazy ones, you know, from you know, the Wall to like Hypno Hustler. Everybody was in the bar, and you got into like and he got into like a fight with Hammerhead, and it was wild. You know what I mean?
It's crazy stuff.
Yeah. It was like it was a wild, like, you know, the bar was like hidden down a subway shaft, and like he knocked on the wall, and the wall speaks, and it's the character the Wall. You know what I mean? And it's like, I was like, what's the password? And so it was fun, but it didn't fit. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't fit. And it's not to say that it's something that can't be a different version can't be explored, you know, later or in some other way, or that you might not see some of these characters some other time. It's just in terms of serving the narrative of the story, as cool as it was, you know, you don't want to, like, no pun intended, go off the rails in terms of the story you're trying to tell.
No, definitely understand. And then, you know, again, with these movies, you have it where, like, you know, everybody digs into the Easter eggs and everything. And an interesting Easter egg, which is more of like a meta Easter egg that I heard, and I want to just double check and make sure. You guys used the kid to do the stop animation for that stop animation world. That is so dope. Like, that's being so connected to the culture like that and making that type of decision. Whose idea was that to involve the kid, and how did that conversation come about?
Well, understand, we didn't know he was a kid at first, so that was a bit of a surprise for us, because there had been some talk about adding a Lego world, but we hadn't done it yet, and it was right after we released our very first teaser trailer. We released a couple of trailers, but the first teaser trailer, Preston Mutanga, who was the kid who ended up doing it, he did like a shot-by-shot recreation of that teaser trailer in Lego. And I'm not on social media much. I have a Twitter, but I don't look at it much. But like, I saw that. We were all sharing it with each other. And when the conversation went on about like, are we going to do the Lego world? It was like, you know, it'd be cool. We should reach out to the guy who did that. Because I mean, Jesus, he obviously knows what he's doing, and that's kind of fun. So reaching out, we found out that he was a 14-year-old kid. and at first it was like, okay, so we left it to the producers and business affairs to figure out, how to work it out. But of course, after he actually believed that it was the film trying to have him do it and not a prank, because understandably, you know, him and his parents would be a little bit suspicious. But once they realized that it was real, we managed to work it out. I think he did a phenomenal job. I mean,
amazing.
I thought, and it's so great. It's one of to me, it's one of the moments in the film that gets one of the biggest laughs. It's a wonderful callback to, you know, Phil and Chris and one of their earlier things with the Lego movie. It was it just turned into something pretty special.
No, that was super dope, man. Again, that movie, hands down, man, one of the best that we've seen out there, and really killing this year. Now, I do also want to talk about, man, you worked with the Obamas on Higher Ground Productions, right?
Yeah.
What was it like, and what is it like working on that project with them? Like, I need the insight, man.
Yeah, I mean, I can't talk about it too much, but I mean, look, Barack Obama is I don't want to necessarily call him a blerd, but I'd say he's not a blerd, because my man, like, the first conversation I had with him, we bonded over Undercover Brother, you know, and a mutual love of Undercover Brother, you know, because we were having a conversation and he quoted it, and I was like, wait a minute, did you just quote Undercover Brother? And he was like, yeah, that's I'm doing a bad Obama. He's like, yeah, that's one of the greatest movies ever. And I was like, oh shit. And we like went down a rabbit hole talking about Undercover Brother while the other execs in the room are kind of looking at each other. And it was like, haven't you all seen Undercover Brother? And a couple of people were like, no. And we were like, oh man, you've all got to see Undercover Brother. So he loves film and art and all those, you know what I mean? He loves all of those same things. So, you know, with the project, when I came on board to work with them as a writer, initially I had to like interview and have a conversation with him and kind of give him ideas. And I realized that like it's simpatico, you know, like this is a guy who is thoughtful and one of the smartest like people I've ever met. And I like his taste. You know what I mean? Like his list every year he does of top films. I was proud to have Soul end up on his list, you know, and that's how we first, you know, connected, because when I was trying to work with them, they wanted to see some of my work, and Soul wasn't out yet. So thankfully the folks at Disney accommodated me. We arranged for them to screen Soul for him and his family, because this was during COVID, in their house over Father's Day. And so, you know, they watched Soul and then, you know, gave me a shout and really enjoyed it, and decided to kind of work together. And, you know, he was in town, you know, not too long ago, and, you know, got a chance to chop it up a little bit. But he's just a thoughtful, smart guy with amazing taste who's trying to produce incredible stories. And that's music to my ears, because I'm trying to go out there and tell incredible stories that I hope surprise and delight and move people. I mean, that's it. I'm trying to, you know, reconnect people to their own humanity.
Yeah, and you know, so two things. One, you don't have to call him a blerd, but we're definitely going to call him a blerd. I'm letting you know that now. But here's the thing about Blerd culture and why that and what you said is so huge for this culture is that's what we're trying to show. You know, we ourselves, we are doing an independent documentary called the Black Geek documentary. And the idea around this documentary is to show that there's blerds in every walk of life. And one of the inspirations came from, you know, one of our cinematographers. He's a barber. And you know how the black barbershop is in our culture, right? It's usually filled with hip hop elements, sports talks, and everything like that. But he's a blerd. So when you walk in his barbershop, it's anime posters, comic books, and he has anime on the TV instead of like Sports Center and stuff like that. And he's putting people onto anime. And I said, see, that is a culture that I feel like the world doesn't know, because again, everybody still thinks Urkel, but they'll find out like, okay, this cool barber that you know, he's a blerd. The president, you know, Obama, he's a blerd. And then like, and when I have these conversations, you know, I had a conversation with Jay Ellis, and it was revealed on the conversation that he's a blerd, and the world didn't know that. I'm like, look, that's what I want to show. I want to show the world that blerds is everywhere. This culture is bigger than this little pocket that you guys think we are. You know, we have whole conventions, BlerdCon and DreamCon. You know, we have creators that are putting things on. And so it's like, I love to hear those stories like that. I did want to ask you though, the second thing is, we heard about that legendary week of dinners that they threw. Is there any chance we're going to get 1 week at Brentwood Hotspot? You know, like one night in Miami, get a 1 week at Brentwood. Tell that story, because there was a lot of powerful people at those dinners.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sworn to secrecy, man. I can neither confirm nor deny that those dinners or who was there or who wasn't there. I'm sworn to secrecy. Sorry.
All right, so we got two more segments. I do want to have a little bit of fun with you. All right, so the first segment, we generally do these hypotheticals, right? But I got a hypothetical for you. I don't know if you've seen it, well, because you're not on the internet as much, but there's been, you know, the talk around AI, of course, you know, and I don't want to get too heavy into that talk. But one of the things that somebody did was they made like Disney Pixar versions of hip hop artists. And knowing you as a person, I'm going to share my screen real quick. Knowing you as a person who wants to tell Black stories and everything, I wanted to get your take on these. And then also, I wanted to ask you, if you had to choose out of these four for you to attach your cell phone. So we have a Lil Wayne going to a Goblin. We have a Disney Pixar clock. We have a Disney Pixar Wallace for Big. Obviously, that's probably the one you're probably gonna roll with. And then we got J. Cole, $1 in a Dream. Right. So if you had to attach yourself to one project, which one of these projects would Kemp Powers attach himself to?
Wallace.
Yeah, I think so. What's been great about the conversation around these that I've been seeing is that like people are like, yo, we need to get an adult animated studio that would be able to adapt these wild theories and stories and stuff like that, where like, yeah, you have these rappers who have these big time stories, but if there's any way that you can flip it and, you know, appeal to like that animation style, like a lot of people was like, I would love to see that, you know what I'm saying, embedded in our culture, knowing that I think what you guys did with Spider-Verse set the blueprint on how to do animation right. Like you have to have a combination of music and animation and art styles with the good stories, because the stories can be really good, but once you add that animation and art styles, you got to think, for the most part, we had movies that you know, adults we really watch with our kids. But with Spider-Verse, I saw more adults like, yo, I can't wait to see this myself. And so if we had somebody that kind of jumped into those realms, a lot of people are interested in that. So knowing that you have this thirst for animation and, you know, telling those stories, I mean, I wanted to, like, what is your thoughts on telling more adult themed styles, you know, with animation? Maybe not nothing crazy like, you know, like New Jack City, but, you know, do you see something like, you know, like that? Do you feel like with the industry,
of course, man, you have to understand, like, animation isn't kid stuff to me. I mean, it's a medium for storytelling. I mean, some of the best animated films I've seen in my life, like the Red Turtle or Persepolis. You know, these are solidly adult. Dark. Watership Down is one of my favorite animated films of all time, and that's dark. I mean, that terrifies a lot of kids. So I think it's just an incredible medium for storytelling, that if it lends itself to doing it in that medium, there's no story you can't tell in animation. And I don't just exist in the world of animation. I do a lot of live action. I do theater. And I'm not thinking like, okay, I want to do something animated. I'm thinking, what's the story I'm trying to tell? And is animation the right medium for it? And something about that process is that all the beautiful art and all the shiny stuff, like the story, animation also can't save you, you know?
Right.
If the story isn't solid and not told well, polishing it up with animation is still going to be trash. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's an elemental thing. I describe myself as a storyteller. You know, like that's what I do. That's ultimately the best distillation of these things that I do, is that I'm a storyteller. And animation is a great medium for storytellers.
And I feel like you've proven it on multiple platforms. I mean, I think that's what makes your story and your work so great, because you've done it in plays, you've done it in movies, you've done it in animation, you've done it in journalism. It's like you are crossing off all the great things. And then not only that, you have your standards, like, you know, what you want to do. You don't waver in trying to tell a good story. You know, you're all about that. You've worked with some amazing people like Regina King and stuff like that. So it's like, you know, it's really dope to see what you're doing. Now, you're a big comic book buff. I know that, you know, based off of the research. I want to get from you, there's two top fives. The first top five is going to be just a normal one. The second one, we may use it as a clip because it's going to cause the internet to talk. But the first top five comic book runs, because I know you are a fan of, like, you know, the writers and their runs. So I would like to get some top five comic book runs from you. And caveat is, I was going to say
Chris Claremont on X-Men.
Okay.
Frank Miller on Daredevil.
Ooh, nice.
Paul Smith on X-Men.
Nice.
Art-wise, Bill Sienkiewicz on the New Mutants. And Art Adams Long Shot.
Ooh. Hey, you know what? That is a solid list, because it gives you different spectrums from writing to art style to
shit. I gotta add in a six, man. Larry Stroman on X-Force.
You know what? You're the second person that recommended it. I need to check that out.
Larry Stroman, that his X-Force run was dope.
Okay. So now this is the big one. This is the one that everybody's talking about. I need your top 5 Spider-Man movies.
I'm not doing that. Nah.
I tried it. Can't blame you for trying. Can't blame you for trying.
Yeah.
So then outside of that, what was your favorite Spider-Man on the one, though, in Spider-Verse? Like the one that you was like, hey, that was my favorite one.
Wait, what's that now? Say that again.
In Spider-Verse, out of all the Spider-Man that you get, so a lot of people are saying their favorite. Like,
I mean, Miles is my favorite Spider-Man in Spider-Verse. Miles Morales is. Of our new characters, though, I really, really love Spider-Punk.
Yeah, Spider-Punk, he grabbed the world. Oh my God, Daniel Kaluuya did his thing.
Yeah, and it was great to get to know and work with Daniel too. Like it was, you know, developing and finding that character with him. So both from the writing, the performance, the design, he was probably the most complex, difficult character for us to have in the entire film. I'm really happy that people managed to connect. But I love all. I mean, I love, and then when I say my favorite, like I loved every new character that we brought into it. I mean, Jeff Drew, Miguel O'Hara is amazing. Oscar Isaac does a great job. I mean, so it's a smaller character, but Amandla Stenberg as Spider-Bite was really a fun, interesting new character. I've already mentioned multiple times Pav and Karan Soni, and what he did with Pavitra, man, was, you know, it's almost like a movie's worth of work went into each one of these characters, you know, and people will never see how much time and love and energy went into bringing them to life.
Hopefully you guys put it in the Art of book, because I love those. Well,
you gotta trust me. Like I talk about, I think the Art of book comes out the beginning of July. And
we are getting it for the studio
multiple times, and I'm just, man, the art. You're in for a treat. You're in for a real treat.
I can't wait. Was there a moment with the movie that you was like, oh wow, we doing that? Like, you know, like when you were reading it, or that just like, you know, as a fan, one moment that you was like, oh wow, okay, we doing that?
No, not really, because you know, like I was a part of pulling it together. So it was like you're having a conversation, like we should try this, we should try that. So there were a few things where I was like, oh man, I hope this blows people's minds. You know what I mean? Like I hope that like the reveal of Miles G. Morales at the end, like that excited me. The, you know, figure having Mahershala, Uncle Aaron come back in a different dimension. Those things like made me like really, really hype. Like the first time we had that animated, and Miles G kind of drops down off the rafters and like walks up to Miles. And the first time I saw that scene lit in that world, I was, you know, it's just one of those things where you're sitting there and you're like, oh, like, you know, like, and,
you want to know how it really tore people? So I don't know how the marketing team accomplished this, but somehow a lot of us, myself included, forgot that this was going to be a trilogy.
Really?
So yes. And so this is why it got so many people, because as we're watching, we love the movie and we're having so much fun. But then after a while, you're like, yo, man, they're really not going to be able to wrap this up. And we got to see it early, but we got to see probably like a week and a half early after like other people saw it. So I'm like, everybody keeps on talking about how great this movie is. And I'm like, but how is this movie going to be great if they're going to rush the ending? So now you're sitting there, you're like, wait a minute, what is going on? And then when the reveal happens, you're like, whoa, you guys are hitting us. And then the to be continued, because it's like, wait, because I just now started figuring out what's going on. And so it was like, it was a great way that y'all did it, because it was like, you know, sometimes you feel slighted, like, dang it, now I gotta wait. But now it's like, hey, they ended it perfectly, but now I really can't wait for Beyond the Spider-Verse. It was just a lot of emotion in those last 15 minutes.
And it's okay. You know, we had a feeling it might be divisive, but we hope that, like, you know, don't you remember, like, I'm a little older, but like, I remember walking out of The Empire Strikes Back kind of like, oh my God, like, what just happened? You know what I mean? Like, Han's still frozen in the carbonite. Like, oh snap! Like I was. So you know, it's okay, I think, to have some people scream at the screen a little bit, because that means that they went along for the ride, and the story is going to continue. So there's that promise.
Now, before we get you out of here, now I know you can't tell us much or anything, but you know, Beyond the Spider-Verse, the anticipation is high, and I know you've said you guys got some of the voice acting done, not all of it, because you guys are just really waiting to see, you know, the lay of the land, letting everything go and everything like that. But I mean, is there anything that we can get to know about Beyond at all?
No, I can't share anything about that, because again, like, you know, there's speculation anytime anything leaks out, and it's like we're happy we got this finished and got it out, and like I really like let's let people kind of and debate this one for a while. You know what I mean? I know we're in an instant gratification culture, but like I'm not let us have a little bit of time to just like bask in what we in this for a bit.
Has there been any interesting hot takes that you heard, or like theory?
No, not really. I haven't really been listening. I mean, like I said, the key to my happess is like you drop it out into the world, and then you sit in your garden, you know, go for a walk, and just try to like, we all need a little break. We all need a little vacation. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I've been looking at travel books about maybe going to Egypt. You know, like I'm trying to. Yeah.
So where can my people find you at, and what do you need them to support you in besides Spider-Verse?
No, I mean, there's nothing anyone needs to do. If I drop something and it looks interesting, you know, it's up to me. It's up to me to earn that support. There's nothing anyone needs to do. You know, it's what I need to do is continue to try to drop compelling stories on people that they feel like compelled to go out into the world and check it out. So there's nothing any of y'all need to do. It's me. I'm the one who needs to do shit.
I love that perspective, bro. Like I said, you know, you have our support, the Blerd culture, nerd culture, film culture. Like I've been seeing a lot of people singing your praise, and it's well deserved. Keep on doing what you're doing, bro. We appreciate you. But as always, this is One-on-One with Deuces. I've been your boy Deuces. This has been the amazing, legendary Kemp Powers, and we are out. Peace.